The X sound in English can sometimes be problematic for Spanish speakers. You may be very surprised to hear that we do not make an X at the start of any word in English, but in Spanish you do. In English, you see a word that begins with EX, you actually have to treat it like there are two sounds in the same letter. If you can visualize and hear these sounds, you shouldn't have any problem pronouncing the word. However, you will need to be able to pronounce the Z sound, which we covered in an earlier lesson. The exception to this, by the way, is when we use X as a prefix to a word. For example, ex-boss, ex-husband, ex-girlfriend, etc. In fact, all words in English that begin with an X are actually pronounced with the Z sound. For example, xenophobe and Xerox, and very few words in English begin with X. So, what are the sounds we make for words beginning with EX? Well, there are two categories of sounds for these words. These two categories are the EK and S sound, and the EG plus Z sound. So take a minute and practice these two sound combinations, and in the rest of the lesson I will give you plenty of words to practice with them. So let's try with accept, accept, excellent, excess. Now this word can be pronounced with the stress on the first or the second syllable. Excess, excess. Exchange. So look at the second syllable where you have to start it with three consonants here. S, C and H. Sch. Exchange. Make sure to pronounce that S sound first, and it's all one syllable. We will cover the ch sound in a later lesson, so don't worry too much about that for the moment. In the next word, we have also three consonants on the second syllable. Exclude, skl, exclude. Excite and excursion. Excuse, excuse is the noun pronunciation. Let me do the verb pronunciation. Excuse. This is the verb pronunciation with the Z sound. But the noun pronunciation has the S sound. Excuse. And that is a good example of the difference between the S and the Z sound. Excuse, excuse. Expand, expect, expense, expert, expire, explain, explode, exploit, explore. Export, the verb, has the stress on the first syllable, and the noun has the stress on the second syllable. Express, exterior, extra, extraordinary, extreme. Now let's have a look at the other sound combination. The first syllable can be a little bit more difficult because of the G sound, as in egg, g, egg. Also, the second sound of this first syllable has a very distinct Z sound, and you must pronounce it. So let's try these common words. Example, exam, exhibit, exist, exotic, executive, exempt, exert, exaggerate. That's a difficult word because you've got the z and you've got a j sound in there. Exaggerate, examine, exact. So how do you know when to pronounce the x sound and when to pronounce the z sound? Have a look at the rules here and you will see that it depends on what the third letter of the word is. Now, it's not an easy rule to remember, but you will know instinctively which way to pronounce them with some practice.